Hello, everybody, and welcome to the greatest show ever made for television, the Dr. Melissa LeBird Show. No, just kidding. I'm not kidding. This is awesome. I'm super excited to be here with you today. Uh, Welcome to my TV show, The Art of the Graceful Revolution. It's so exciting. I'm so grateful. Um, I'm just so happy to be here. And first of all, I just want to really thank Amy and Nancy for their wisdom and their genius and their brilliance in thinking, you know what we need? We need a TV station. I mean, yeah, you do. So I'm super happy to be premiering my new TV show because it's just really great. And I am so grateful to Amy and Nancy for all their love and all their grace and all the ways they support me. It's so delightful. And I am thrilled and ecstatic to be launching the Art of the Graceful Revolution TV show. Stop it. I just am grateful to be able to talk about the Art of the Graceful Revolution. And so what we're going to do today is be really excited. And I'm so excited. And I'm going to introduce the Art of the Graceful Revolution to y'all. And so I want to tell you a little bit about the history of it and how the Art of the Graceful Revolution came to be, because it's magic. Of course it's magic. So way back in, I think it was like 2014, 2015, something like that, I had a dream. And I had a dream that was so vivid. It's what I like to call it really a divine download. So I just had this thing come into me, and I woke up in the middle of the night. I grabbed my phone off the side of my bed and I typed it into my notes. So when I woke up the next morning, I saw this note because my phone was still on the notes app, you know how it does. And so in the middle of the night, this is what I wrote. Y'all, don't forget that I typed this when I was half asleep. Okay. So in the middle of the night, this is what I wrote. I believe in a new brand of advocacy where we humble ourselves to our shortcomings and engage in acts of graceful revolution that bring light to the true reality of people's lives. I believe that if we engage people in their own spaces, teach them to look at injustice as moments that touch each one of us, if we give them knowledge of the power structure and the tools to infiltrate its membrane, then change will take place in America. This is the Graceful Revolution. Y'all, I typed that in the middle of the night, in the middle of my sleep. And I woke up the next morning and I read it and I started smacking my husband awake. I was like, oh my God, you are not going to believe the genius that I came up with in the middle of the night. It's so good, Jimmy. And I'm hitting him and he's like, what? I need coffee. And so I read it to him. And he was like, that's really smart, sweetheart. You're so smart. I need coffee. And I was like, no, I need a little more enthusiasm for the genius of the Graceful Revolution that I literally wrote in my sleep. And I said, I need a little bit more of you coming in and saying, that's amazing. And I didn't get that. And I was excited. I was so excited, y'all. So then I texted one of my friends and I was like, this is amazing. And I wrote it in my sleep. And she was like, not yet. That's her only response by text, not yet. And I was like, wait a minute. Why aren't people more excited about this idea of the Graceful Revolution? And my friend was like, not yet. And I really needed people to be as excited as I was. And a couple years later, as we all know, 2016 happened. And that was when the first Trump administration was elected. And all I got was this message from my friend that said, we're ready now. And that's how the Art of the Graceful Revolution was really born. And I started talking about this idea and using this idea in my work and really thinking about how impactful and awesome this could be. And I'm a born advocate. Like, I have been protesting and pumping my fist and really, really pissed off most of my life. And the thing that I love about the Graceful Revolution is it gives us an opportunity to remember that, yes, there is a space and a place for protest. And boy, do we really, do we need a lot more of that right now. And there's also a space and a place to be angry about injustice. And boy, howdy, do we need some of that right now. And also, when we add the word grace to the revolution, it gives us the opportunity to have more grace for ourselves, to not expect perfection in our actions and our activism, but to really allow ourselves to engage in things that we want to change because we find them to be unjust. And that also means that we can engage in things that we find to be unjust in our own lives, in our own hearts, in our own bodies, in our own ways, so that we can perfectly and imperfectly engage in connecting with our communities. And when we engage in connecting with our own hearts calling in the world, we imperfectly engage with ourselves, because that is what we are really, really searching for right now. We actually are searching for permission to not freak out about all the things that are going on. And the Graceful Revolution gives us an opportunity to say, hey, I know you're really upset right now. Oh, dear self, I know you're really upset right now. I know there's a lot going on right now. And if you give yourself permission to focus and have faith, and give yourself grace to engage in what's happening in your communities, in your life, in the world, in a more heart-centered space, from a more heart-centered space, then you will be able to touch other people's lives. And the thing that I love about the art of the Graceful Revolution is that this is about engaging people in their own spaces and understanding what happens to one of us happens to all of us. And when we recognize that all the things that are happening in the world, they call it the butterfly effect. Like if a butterfly flaps its wings and the weather in South America changes, it changes the weather all over the world. And the idea is that there is power and transformation in the littlest things, like a butterfly flapping its wings. And so often I feel like in activism and advocacy, in the engaging that we are doing with each other and also with the government, with things that are happening in the world, we have to engage in these large scale, giant efforts. And as I was getting ready to launch the Graceful Revolution on Passionistas TV, I was thinking about how, like in Canada, for example, American whiskey is no longer going to be available on the shelves. And that is one small action that an entire nation is taking to shift the effect of what's happening with the tariffs that are being put in place by the current Trump administration. One small thing can make a huge difference. And that is what the art of the Graceful Revolution is all about. So I want to tell you a little bit about the Graceful Revolution and what I really realized after I wrote that note. I've absorbed it for, it's been almost 10 years really that I've been absorbing this note on my phone. And that is that this is a prophecy. This is something, that the prophecy is something that comes from the divine. So the fact that this was downloaded in the middle of the night when my brain was not working at full force, which, y'all, my brain is like constantly moving and constantly thinking. And I have a really difficult time actually shutting down all the stuff that's constantly going through my head, like I'm sure many of you do, because you're all really highly intelligent, smart humans. And one of the things I really realized is that this is a prophecy, and that word makes me deeply, deeply uncomfortable. And it makes me uncomfortable because I grew up in a place where, like, I grew up in Utah, and I grew up in a place where the Mormon prophet had dominion over everything we said or did, even if we weren't LDS or Mormon. And so I've tried to call the art of the Graceful Revolution and this idea of Graceful Revolution something else, but it refuses to budge. So here we are with this prophecy. And one of the things I had to reconcile with myself is that I am super duper magic, y'all. I mean, I am super connected to the spiritual world. And I'm pretty sure that the meme Magic AF was actually made for me. I don't know about you, but I feel like it was made for me. And part of that is because ever since I was a small girl, a little tiny girl, I've received visions. I've connected with spirits and with ancestors. And I used to think that the things that come to me at 2 a.m. when I'm trying to sleep were very inconvenient. because it's like spirits coming in and saying, hey girl, just popping in to send you a message, you're going to want to write this down. And I'm like, yeah, it's 2 a.m. Really, what I want is 8 hours of full sleep without you bugging me. But what I realized is that this graceful revolution and the message of it was so important that it had to hit me when I didn't have all these things going on in my head. So I was like, okay, all right, I gotcha. And what I want to encourage everybody who's watching this, anybody who's watching this from here on out, is that as I'm talking about the art of the graceful revolution and talking about these connection points and giving you tips and tricks and the ways that we can really connect with this idea of putting the grace in revolution, I want to remind you that sometimes we get messages from the divine and they're kind of like undressed oatmeal, like no sweetness, just kind of blah. Like, who wants to eat that, right? And then other times we get these really profound statements of colossal change that will completely shift the way we navigate in the world. And those are the things that scare us the most. And those are the things that are really, really potent and prophetic, like the idea of the graceful revolution. It is something that scared me for so long, and something that actually did, for a minute, disengage me from moving forward with talking about the graceful revolution, because it felt so much like a prophecy, like something that could have deep and amazing impact around whoever got to know about the graceful revolution. And because we have, like, one of the things that I love about this idea and this idea of giving ourselves more faith and more grace is this idea and this notion that for all of us, especially those of us who are involved here with the Passionistas, we aren't the norm, right? Like, we don't fit into the implicit messages of a cultural norm. And particularly for me, as I've been navigating through the world, I had to really disentangle myself from these implicit cultural messages that I do not fit. And that is grace. That is mercy. That is self-love and self-compassion. And the more that we disentangle ourselves from the messages that we've received growing up, these implicit messages that we do not fit and therefore something is wrong with us, we start to engage in grace, which is very revolutionary. And when we allow ourselves to realize that we are not actually experiencing failings of ourselves and that we aren't failing in anything, that the fact is we are connected to the divine at all times. And sometimes I hear dead people, and all of these things that I've experienced throughout my life, what we can do is allow it to empower us to recognize that we have been given these gifts with purpose, on purpose. And that's not to say that I don't have a complicated relationships with my insights. Like, I get message and I think, oh, I don't want to be right. Or, oh, I really don't want to say this out loud. And I go back to the very first time that I remember consciously talking to spirit. And it was actually my dad. So for those of you who don't know, my dad committed suicide when I was 6. And he actually came to me the night that he died. And my dad said to me, I want you to take care of your mom and your sister. And he told me he would visit me as a great bird. And he told me that he was sorry and that he loved me. And that dream felt so good because it was me connecting with my dad. And when I think about that memory, I remember that. And I remember there must be a reason that I have that connection with this intangible, the intangible, that I have a connection with the unseen. That is not a failing. It's not a curse. It's not a problem. And so anything that you're wrestling with, that you're thinking, I must not be this person, something must be wrong with me, it could be about anything. And I want to encourage all of you to really think about that, to connect with that idea that perhaps it's not a failing. Perhaps it's a connection point and an inflection point for you to disentangle yourself from the implicit messages that we receive throughout our lives as women of color, as people who might be part of the LGBT community. There are so many messages. We've received these implicit messages. And the revolution and the grace is in allowing ourselves the space to say, not today. I'm not going to let these ideas that have been placed upon me from external forces to wreck me today. I'm just going to keep doing the things I know that I was put here on the earth to do. And, I think about the work that I do here on this planet. And oftentimes, I think I need a t-shirt that says I make grown people cry, because I make people cry. And I don't know how I do it. And it's just like all of a sudden I've got people just weeping in front of me. Sometimes it takes a little time, but oftentimes I make people weep and fill with this emotion. And so often I've heard from people, I've never told anyone this. People tell me all the time, I've never told anyone this. I hear it all the time. And when I hear things like that from people, they say, I can't believe I'm writing this to you, or I can't believe I'm saying this to you. And that's really important, because I think a lot of us have these remarkably awesome ideas about how things can change in our world, because we receive messages from the divine all the time. And as we are embarking in such a radical change as a nation and a world, people like us are here to pursue dreams that we have held long since we were little people, tiny little people. So even if you've spent decades trying to deny who you are, remember this, that you are a divine being worthy of love, mercy, and compassion. And for us to be here together at this exact point in time on the planet, here on Earth, it's remarkable. It's remarkable. It's not a miracle. That word miracle distills it too much, but it is a remarkable happenstance for us to be here, a remarkable occurrence that we are here together and connected both to the divine and to the planet and to each other in inexplicable ways that we can't really understand. And that is why I believe that the Graceful Revolution is so prophetic, because it allows us to explore the mystery of our spirituality while engaging with each other in open-hearted, compassionate leadership in our own communities, even if it's just within our own families or with our friends. The Graceful Revolution gives us the opportunity to connect with both our souls and to become the changer and the changed. When we tap into grace that is our birthright, we realize that even though there are religious leaders, religious institutions, elected officials, and community members who think that I am not worthy of love, that you are not worthy of love, that is not true. The revolution is in recognizing that we are, simply because we exist in this world. And that is the grace in the Graceful Revolution, to allow ourselves to be seen as intricately connected. Human beings tethered to the mystery of God and the universe is a revolutionary act. When we recognize that connection point, when we recognize the tether between the divine, the heavens, and the earth, it brings us to a whole different place physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So even when we are told that we are not capable, we are not worthy, that there's no way we have the capacity to accomplish the visions that are placed within us, that is bullshit. And so as you explore with me the art of the Graceful Revolution, and you come here every week to connect with me as part of this incredible television community, I really want to give you permission to recognize that every move we make is divinely inspired. Our soul is in this body. Every one of us has one. Every one of us has a soul. And these souls are here to help us have a human experience. They're here to have an adventure. They're here on this joyful spiritual activist route. And as far as I'm concerned, to connect with all of the things that are happening in our lives. And when we integrate the things that inspire us, and like the gods and goddesses that inspire us, the political figures or writers or artists that inspire us, when we integrate all of those inspirations and all of that creation together, we fall deeper into our power and our capacity for creation. And that is why I call it the art of the Graceful Revolution. Because whether we call ourselves artists or not, we are all creators. We are all here as a part of creation. And that means we can advocate for a truth that is firmly rooted in compassion, grace, faith, and love. And love. So I want to talk a little bit about the first time I actually publicly wrote about the Graceful Revolution. And it was on a blog I used to have, when blogging was cool. And I wrote about it because I publicly wanted to let people know and understand why this is so important. So back in 2016, We lived in Anaheim, California, home of Disneyland and all sorts of other shenanigans. And there was a homeless man who lived on the side of the freeway exit near our home. It was just a couple blocks away from our house, and we drove by him every day. And he had a lovely camp, and he would sit under this really beautiful tree just off the freeway. And he mostly kept to himself, except for on the days when he went grocery shopping at our neighborhood store. And sometimes I would see him in the grocery store. And here's the grace. So Jim, my husband, who's a veteran and a formerly homeless person, he and I used to visit with him, but neither of us knew it or shared it with each other. So imagine this. Individually, we would stop and offer this man companionship or food. Jim would bring him coffee. I would bring him baked goods. He was partially deaf. He had no family. He'd fought in the Vietnam War, and so he was also a veteran. He had a cat, and we knew his name. And I often thank God that we knew his name, because on our daughter's 8th birthday, we were headed to the beach to celebrate her birthday. And as we made our way to the freeway exit, there were fire trucks and police cars everywhere. And a car had taken the corner too fast and gone off the road, running into our homeless friend and killing him instantly. And we came upon that accident just moments after it had happened. If we had left the house a few minutes earlier, we would have witnessed the whole entire thing. So we pulled over. Jim pulled over immediately, told the kids to stay in the car, and we both ran over to the scene. We told the police who he was. We told them that he was a veteran. We gave them the information that we had spoken to him. The police would never have known who he was because we had connected with this man as a human being, because we had asked about his life. We'd asked him about who he was. We'd talked to him about what he needed. And all of a sudden, he became a human. And that is the grace in the revolution. Because of this, he was not buried in a pauper's grave, which is where he was headed, because no one knew who he was. And because we knew who he was, they found him through the veterans' records, and he was able to be buried in the veterans cemetery with full military honors. And that is grace. That is activism. And that is a very small act to take this person food or chat with him. These are not big, giant, momentous things that we're talking about. The change is the ripple. So as you're thinking about revolutionary acts and you're thinking about grace, I ask you to consider how you connect with others outside your safe social circles. I want to implore all of us as we are moving through the world to ask complete strangers how they are, what their name is, where they come from, to think of all the ways in which we've come to believe that we cannot make a difference, or that the ideas that you have are silly. And I want to remind you that they are not. The ideas we have, the thoughts that come into us, the thoughts like, I wonder if I can make a difference doing this. Those are gifts that are given to us by the divine. They are placed upon us by our soul so that we can experience the adventure of living during our time on earth. And that is why I think the Graceful Revolution is so important. This is a roadmap towards spiritual and community healing. And throughout this time with you for however long this TV show exists, I want to open the threshold for all of you to think about this. Just embarking on this journey together where we center creating a web of community, and where we enter the threshold to ourselves, the community of ourselves, and the community of all the people that we integrate and act and interact with. So this is really a guide. It's a guide to think about how bullshit societal structures have expanded in our subconscious, so that we can actually, as we move through this threshold on this journey, release the hold of societal structures and bullshit on our life and our decisions. That in and of itself is an act of rebellion. To approach our lives and change with love and compassion, to approach ourselves with love and compassion, to approach the world with love and compassion, even people who do not think like us, look like us, or act like us. And I really want to offer you a space where you can engage with this internal awareness, where you begin to love yourself with unabashed abandon so you can love others equally so. It's such a good reminder that because we took the time to get to know our friend and loved our friend, he got a hero's burial. And we didn't have to do that. We didn't have to engage with this person at all. And had we not, he would have been left and forgotten on the side of the road. The action that I took because I wrote that blog is I also wrote to our elected officials, begging them to stop turning a blind eye to our homeless population. You know, we were living in the shadow of Disneyland where everybody pretends that life is perfect and wonderful and la, la, la. And I ended up reminding the people in power in our community in Anaheim that everybody is a human. And whether you have money or not, or a home or not, when we connect with each other on that human level and stop dehumanizing each other, we all become worthy of grace and compassion. We all become connected to the absolute fact that we are deserving of community and connection no matter who we are. And that starts with us. It starts with loving ourselves more than we love anything else on this planet. And realizing that we will always be too much of something. We're either too short or too tall, too loud or too quiet, too skinny, too fat, too smart or too dumb, too successful, not successful enough, too educated, too uneducated. Like we throw all these twos, all the TOOs. We'll never fit into a box because we are humans being. And the Graceful Revolution says to take that idea to heart, to realize that this isn't a competition. There is no winning or losing here. We are free to connect to the tapestry of our beautiful, messy, glorious life and our beautiful, messy, glorious world, to ourselves. This is an expansion. I have a mission to stop using the term self-care. Like, can we please stop? Because what we are looking for is soul care. What we are searching for is self-love. And when we fall in love with ourselves and embrace this type of love, that is a revolutionary, rebellious act in and of itself, because we are healing the wounds of disconnection and we see others as messy and deserving of love as well. And the reason this is so difficult, of course, is because collectively we've been sold this narrative of rugged individualism where we could do it all in order to succeed. I will never forget being a kid and hearing that Angeli perfume commercial, learning about how you can bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan, and never let him forget he's a man. We are not here to do all that. It's so much. All the pressure. We're here to love ourselves and love other people. We're not meant to live in a silo where we fuck around and wait to find out. When we love ourselves, when we look into our own eyes, we are able to see how connected we are to the mysticism of the universe. And all of a sudden, when we see our messy selves, the entire messiness of our lives, when that happens, we begin to have faith. We begin to expand in the faith that we are here with a purpose. When you love you, you are able to break down barriers of othering and stop categorizing others as failed in some way, because you realize you are not failing. You are able to return to your shared humanity and know that you have not failed. When you give yourself grace, when you engage in the rebellion of mercy, when you lead with love every moment of every day, you are reminded that you have not failed. You have done your best with what you know at this exact moment. You haven't lost as long as you are alive. You are on a journey of learning in your perceived mistakes. And these are just moments along the road of life. So I want to remind you that each moment leads to the next. It's that simple. You're going to leave here after we're done. Oh, and thank you for being here and watching. And you're going to leave here and move on to the next thing. And when you move on to the next thing, I want you to remember that your soul is here to experience living in a human body, that your capacity to love yourself and others grows when your magic and your intuition grows, when you enjoy yourself and laugh at yourself. I laugh at myself all the time. All the time. When you laugh at yourself and pay attention to the little bits of life down to the smallest gifts, what happens is you spark that magic and intuition. You open up a portal within yourself where this prophecy of Graceful Revolution opens the door for you to love the ugly, to criticize less, and to connect with what rings true to you. This is the portal of self-compassion and the greater honoring of the mystery of living. We are not supposed to have all the answers. The way we disrupt the patriarchy and all of these messages that we have sucked into our bodies is to disrupt it with love and compassion and grace and mercy and faith. the more we are able to engage with what we don't know is coming. I said that wrong. My thought twisted. The more we disrupt, rebel, and revolutionize with love and compassion and grace, the more we're going to be able to engage with what we don't know is coming, because we will have mercy and faith. What we cannot consciously perceive is happening. What we don't know, this whole idea of moving into the unknown, because we're in the unknown. We've actually been here forever, since people came to the planet. We have been in a world of unknowing. We aren't meant to know exactly what's coming next. We're meant to be connected with each other and the earth and all living beings in this woven circle of life. And so as you leave here today, I want to encourage you to think of rebellion and revolution as an act of loving mercy. I want you to think of rebellion and revolution as an act of loving kindness, graceful tenderness. And as you join me here on this journey, I want to walk with you on this path and this threshold as part of this portal of connecting to the spirit, to the stars, to the grandness of the universe. And while we're rooting ourselves here on earth and firmly planted in the here and now, we're going to be tethered to both of those things together. So thank you so much for joining me for my premiere of my TV show. Thank you, Amy and Nancy, for having me as part of this beautiful, amazing experience. And I hope to see as many of you as possible on this journey as we explore the ideas and the rebellion and the revolution. That is grace. Thank you so much for being here. I love you all so much. I am just thrilled about this whole thing. So thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Well, I'm back and I'm not sure where Amy is.
The stream is in.